Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is CJ the Populist New Yorker, and today we're going to be taking a break from the 2021 elections to kind of take a look at the 2022 House elections and really take a look at these maps that are being proposed in states all across the country. A few have been finalized since we last made a video on this, Texas and West Virginia. So we'll be taking a look at those states as well as new proposals from other states such as Virginia, North Carolina, Alabama, Arkansas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Idaho, I think, are all the new ones. We could also take a look at Wisconsin and Michigan as well, since I don't think we covered those too much last time. But we'll dive into these maps and really analyze who, I guess, is doing a better job at gerrymandering their state, because I made a video about a week or so back, probably about 2 weeks ago now, that basically talked about that the House majority might hinge partly on which party can gerrymander their state better. And we're already seeing kind of relentless gerrymandering going on in Illinois, in New York. We're going to look at North Carolina. That's a state that's going to be particularly gerrymandered again. These are states, by the way, that have total partisan control on one side, so they're taking advantage of that control. So I guess we'll first take a look at the state of Texas, because Texas finalized its map. This map is a bit stronger for the Republicans than the old map, but not by a glaring amount. And I think the reason why Republicans did this, rather, was even though the old map had way less safe Democratic seats, it also had more toss-up seats. And I think Texas Republicans overall wanted to hold on to their majority, perhaps gain a few. But ultimately, I'd say this map is certainly weaker than even the last map they proposed. The only problem with the last map was there were a lot of seats that were ready to flip, so they tried to change that. It drew a lot of Republicans into safer districts. Ooh, you can actually zoom in now. So, of course, we have districts like Dan Crenshaw's district, which is now R plus 27. If we go back to the 2020 election, it was actually only R plus 7, and he won his district by 13 points. So he overperformed, probably because he was a national figure, so he definitely had a lot more recognition. But, you know, a lot of districts like Texas 31, for instance, you have districts like Texas 10. A lot of these districts, Texas 21, a lot of districts that have gotten closer that are now safe, protecting incumbents for the most part. Chip Roy's district is now R plus 24. Texas 10th is R plus 24, 27. You know, you really see Republicans giving away some seats in the metro areas like Houston, like Dallas, Fort Worth. So, you know, for instance, Colin Alarid, who I think only won his re-election by a few points or so. Yeah, he only won by around 6 points, but he's now in a D plus 26, 25 district. So Republicans have really made up for that fact, I think, by gerrymandering basically the suburbs and the urban areas into very compact districts. So this is what's been finalized. So a lot of the ex-urban and suburban parts of Houston and all that, Dallas and all that, will stay solidly red, you know, as they were really kind of slipping before. You know, Texas's 24th was really slipping away. Now it's an R plus 22 because they've redrawn the lines. But, you know, a lot of these districts have really slipped away from Republicans. So I think the reason they gerrymandered the state in this particular way was so that they could hold on and save their incumbents. It wasn't necessarily to gain seats. It was more of looking long term because, you know, if Texas continues to trend blue, for instance, a district that's R plus 23 might only be R plus 10 by the end of the decade or something like that. So I think they're aware of that, and that's why they drew these districts in this particular way. That's my guess anyway. That's the only way I could really think that they would draw these districts, basically not really giving themselves that much of more of an advantage than they had before. And I think that's really because they're thinking long term. Now, another big state that is really trying to draw their districts in a way to benefit themselves is Illinois. The Illinois Democrats, which fully control the legislative process. Unlike New York actually does have a quote-unquote independent commission that draws the districts and the legislature votes on it. In Illinois, the Democrats just draw the districts. There is no legislative process. So as a result, 2 more plans were submitted. Again, this was the first plan, which a lot of Democrats said didn't go far enough in terms of boosting their own numbers. They cut it down to 3 safe Republican seats, but then you had 3 seats that were only D+3, D+2, D+2. These are seats that easily could flip in a red wave year. So they went back to the drawing board with that one and came up with the second Illinois plan, which is a lot better for Democrats. This makes essentially only one competitive seat, 3 safe seats. It actually puts Adam Kinzinger, who was a never Trump Republican. He was originally in the first map. He was put into a district with a Republican incumbent. Now he's on his own. Obviously, he's going to face a primary challenger, but I did think that was interesting that they moved him in his own district. But a lot of these districts now, these districts that were lean blue are safe blue, safe or likely blue for Democrats. And I think the third plan is pretty similar as well. Yeah, similar, different boundaries. You only have one toss-up, 3 safe red districts. I think this one is probably going to be the one that passes. It gives Democrats the strongest chance. It basically guarantees that Democrats are going to win, they're going to win 13 at the least of these seats, possibly 14 in a really good year. So that's the Illinois map. We could take a look at Arizona too. Arizona, I don't think we looked at last time. So for instance, we could take a look at a plan that benefits the Republicans the most, which looks like the 4th plan. This gives Republicans the best shot. It puts Democrats in only 2 safe districts, leaves a lot of lean red, basically toss-up districts. Arizona's second, it seems like, in all of these plans, is going to go red, and that's mainly because of population. It seems like just the population changes, because if we go back to the 2020 election, in Arizona, this district, District 1, which I guess is now District 2, was safe blue. Well, not safe blue. It was a blue district. Always went Democratic since it was made. But, it seems like all of the plans in Arizona aren't going to be that favorable for the Democratic Party. And particularly, this map here, the first proposal, actually puts Raul Grijalva, which is, I think, a pretty progressive member of the House. It puts him in basically a even district, which could make him vulnerable to losing in a general election. In the current map, he's in a safe district. Now that district has moved considerably, and this maybe also could do with shifts as well, but I think it's mainly because they include these really red areas around Phoenix into the district as well. So we don't actually know which district in Arizona is going to pass, but, based on how Arizona has been thus far, it actually seems like Democrats are looking to lose seats in Arizona just because of this fact. So it remains to be seen. But as of right now, again, this plan probably looks the strongest for Democrats, and this actually gets rid of a Democratic incumbent. The second preliminary plan, keeps Raul Grijalva in a safe seat. And Kirkpatrick, I think, is actually leaving, so this seat actually might go red. So overall, it looks like Republicans have to gain in the state of Arizona by about a seat or so. And this is an independent commission, but this is just how the state is panned out politically. If we take a look at Michigan, there's 4 plans by the Michigan Independent Commission. I think they totally make up this process. We have the map that benefits Democrats the most. It still gives Republicans an edge. They're closer to the majority, and that's just how Michigan really is at this point, because all of the Democratic votes are basically concentrated around Detroit and around Macomb counties. And if we look at the 2020 election, we could see that pan out because all of the blue counties effectively, did I say Macomb County? I'm in Ann Arbor. All of the blue counties essentially are in the Detroit metro area. The Democrats are not spread out in a state like Michigan. That's why you have maps like this. That's why even though Michigan is probably a lean Democratic state, you have Republicans in the advantage. They just have the advantage because they're more spread out than the Democrats are. And that's why overall, in a lot of these states, Republicans have the advantage in House races. We could look at the 12th proposal, which seems to be the best for the Republicans. It knocks off a Democratic incumbent and possibly 2 more if they end up winning these seats. But 2022, as of right now, is looking to be a good year for the Republicans. I really am looking closely at the Virginia and New Jersey governor's races, particularly Virginia. That'll really determine what kind of wave we're looking at. But even without that, even with the old maps in place, Republicans could have taken the House back. There were plenty of districts that were decided, like Michigan's 8th, for instance, by like 3 points. By 3 points. So many districts, especially in states like Pennsylvania, that were decided by such close margins that even if we had the same map, Republicans would have taken back the House. I think it's almost inevitable at this point. And, you know, these maps just further cement how, like, strong that control is going to be. We could take a look now at North Carolina. Whoa, North Carolina has a lot of proposals, so we're not going to go through all of them. But if we take a look at the North Carolina House map now, we have 5 safe Democratic districts in North Carolina, and the rest are basically lean or safe Republican. We got a few likelies. North Carolina's 8th, 9th district. But a lot of these districts are either safe or likely, and of course we have 5 safe Democratic districts. Well, one likely, North Carolina's one. But now we have proposals from the Republican-controlled legislature. And this is interesting because Republicans fully control the redistricting process in North Carolina. The governor has absolutely no say, and I think that was one of the rules that was changed that the governor before, Pat McCrory, actually signed into law before Roy Cooper took office, because he won the governor's race in 2016. The Republican legislature and then Republican governor, before he left, I think passed this, basically putting the power solely in the General Assembly, which is very Republican. So we'll take a look at this proposal. This looks like a fairly balanced proposal here. You know, it gives the Democrats 4 safe districts, and there's a lot of toss-up districts, a lot of districts that, you know, lean maybe slightly Democratic, slightly Republican. Overall, it's a lot more volatile. It would probably depend on, like, what kind of wave the country was going through at the time. Then we take a look at the total opposite. We look at a map that I think benefits Republicans the most, which is this one. This gives Democrats just 3 safe districts. It puts the rest, it knocks off Democratic incumbents. It puts the rest of these seats in either safe or likely Republican hands. And again, this is a state that was almost 50-50 in 2020, but, you know, based on this map, Republicans would control 10 out of the 14 House districts. So this really goes to show you how much gerrymandering can change the political makeup of a state when you draw the lines in such a way. So this is definitely the map that would benefit Republicans the most. Knocks out a few Democratic incumbents. Of course, I would say probably this proposal here benefits Democrats the most. It actually gives them 6 House seats and 2 seats that lean red that could possibly flip. This will never pass in the North Carolina Republican legislature. I would expect one of the extremely partisan ones to pass as well. I mean, this map probably might end up being the next House map of North Carolina. So, you know, as I said in that other video, gerrymandering does really win out the day. You know, Republicans are basically going to take back the 2 seats that Democrats were given after North Carolina was basically forced to redraw its districts because it violated the Civil Rights Act, I think. And those gains by Democrats are probably going to be taken away overnight in this. So another big state that I saw updated their maps is actually Virginia. And Virginia is getting a ton of attention now because of its governor's race. And there's a lot of Virginia maps being proposed now. So this is completely an independent commission. So it really does depend. But the legislature has to vote on this. And I think the Democrats are not happy with the independent commission, partly because they think that it's too unfair for them. For instance, they argue that, we'll take a look at this proposal, for instance. Republicans have the majority in this proposal, but Democrats would argue that, you know, back in the 2020 election, they won the state by 10 points. They say the state is a lot more Democratic than the map is, which is a fair point, I'd say. But of course, you could also argue on the Republican side that 2020 was kind of the floor for Republicans in the state. But regardless, Democrats are not going to be happy losing any seats in Virginia. I really don't know what the true deadline is for a map to be submitted for the state. November 30th, it looks like Virginia needs to approve a map. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. We could very well see a map like this, which is kind of, you know, actually puts Democrats in more of an advantage, hurts Republicans more. But it gets rid of Abigail Spanberger, and it has an open seat that's Democrat +1. And of course, we have Virginia's second R+2, which, again, narrowly both times in the 2020 election went to the Democrats. So, you know, this is basically Virginia Beach and part of Hampton Roads, York County, and the peninsula here. So, Spanberger's district in a lot of these maps is drawn out completely. You know, she's put in, well, I don't even know why she's not in this one. Oh, this one she's actually put in with a Democratic incumbent. So I don't think these really partisan Republican maps will pass. Neither with the Democratic maps. I think they're going to have to make some sort of compromise. You'll probably see something similar to this, which seems to be probably the fairest map I think you can come up with. It's the closest to the old map. Really only leaves one toss-up. Republicans gain the 7th district because this is an open seat. But in the rest of the cases, because it gets rid of Spamberger's district and makes it basically a red district. So I think this is probably the map you're going to see, something like it. Again, there's actually a lot of contention with this map. I haven't really followed it too much, but the legislature is not happy. And the independent commission is probably not going to meet its deadline, which means that it will probably go to the Virginia Supreme Court, which somebody told me was controlled still by conservatives. So that'll be really interesting to see what happens in Virginia. Something to watch. Obviously, the governor's race will happen first, but these House maps are still very important because they determine how Virginia will be represented for basically 10 years. So, very important. And the last map, well, 2, we'll look at Idaho. I didn't know Idaho was going to be so uninteresting. So, yeah, 2 safe districts in Idaho. I wanted to look at... What map did I want to look at before? And I forgot because we were looking at Idaho. So we have, of course, Idaho. Oh, Wisconsin. So, again, Wisconsin now... even though, again, it's about a 50-50 state, it has 3 Democratic districts. So 3 out of 8 congressional districts. So this proposal here gets rid of Ron Kind's district. Ron Kind is a Democrat. He's in a district that actually is a Trump district. Wisconsin's 3rd district, I'm pretty sure voted for Trump by around 4 or 5 points. So his overperformance really is exceptional given the fact that his district has moved to the right and probably will continue to move to the right. But again, this map basically preserves the old map. Wisconsin's 3rd is pretty... it is R+9, so I was wrong. So yeah, Wisconsin's 3rd, Ron Kind is probably run out of luck in 2022 given that his district will get even redder. But he's really held on. But most of these... seats are Republican leaning. And I think if we go back, these are going to be drawn by an independent. The maps need to be drawn by the Republican legislature and signed by the governor. So I really don't know which map the governor is going to agree to. I mean, this map is pretty fair. Just objectively speaking, it gives Democrats 1 seat, though. So I don't really know. It probably will be pretty contentious. But again, Republicans don't want to lose any seats in Wisconsin. I think there is kind of a lawsuit going on right now to try to take this power away from the Democratic governor. So we'll see what happens. But again, 2022 midterms might see some changing of hands. You'll see some Democratic gains solely because of redistricting. But then you'll see many more Republican gains. I think in states like Texas and Florida, or Republican holds rather. So anyway, guys, that's the state. Oh, New Mexico. New Mexico is the one I wanted to look at. So New Mexico is really interesting because this is controlled solely by Democrats. So the Independent Redistricting Committee's first map looks a lot like the current map. In fact, it might almost be basically the same. Yeah, this is the current map of New Mexico's district. Of course, the 2nd district is Republican. You have 2 Democratic districts. We see the same thing here. But of course... New Mexico Democrats probably don't want to give Republicans a victory like that. So, of course, we have another district proposed. And finally, we actually have a 3rd map, which I don't know if Democrats would pass because it puts their incumbents in a lot more competitive seats than they were. It would be kind of risky on their part, but they might actually do this just to hope that New Mexico's 2nd does go blue, and they have 3 blue seats in New Mexico. So I'm not really sure which way this one's going to go yet. It really depends on what the Democrats are thinking, whether they're thinking short-term gain or long-term gain. Because again, if the northern parts of New Mexico, if the northern parts of the state continue to trend red, then that's really going to hurt them in a district that only leans D+7. Because by the end of the decade, you could see it lean D+2 or 1 or something like that, and there could be a chance for a Republican to take that seat back. So anyway, guys, that's just an update on the redistricting, the new maps that have come out. since my last video on it, because a lot of the maps are being proposed and a lot of the deadlines are in 2021. So that's why I really wanted to just highlight what's really going on in some of these states, which way states look like they're going to go in terms of their House races. But again, gerrymandering is going to make a huge difference in this midterm. Many people don't like gerrymandering, but unfortunately, it's just something that is going to be around in American politics for a long time. So it is crucial for either party to win in 2022. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. Please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss another video. Share this video with your friends. And as always, again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.